But occasionally I could see, watching my performance back, ultra critically, I could see a little bit of the goblin perhaps creeping through some of the gurgling that I was doing.
So if you had to pick one of the costumes,
yes,
which would it be?
What to wear?
To wear for the rest of your acting career.
For the rest of my life, okay.
It could happen. It could.
Yes, it could. If there was a hideous industrial accident, yeah. I think, well, the one which is nicest to wear is probably Randall Moon because I can hear, I can see, it's all right, and the rest of it's cloth. I don't have to wear any kind of sort of foam around it. So Randall Moon is kindest as a costume.
Okay, outside of the programme, you've appeared at this is my...
Done your research?
I have done my research, yes. Wikipedia and IMDb gives you quite a lot of information.
Right.
You've appeared at Doctor Who at the Proms.
Yes. Yeah.
You've appeared in the Gunpowder Plot video game, I recall.
Oh, yes.
That's wrong.
Yeah.
And you recently did a Q&A in character with kids over in Cardiff as well,
yes.
as Strax. Yeah. Do you enjoy doing all of these things?
It's fun. I mean, I think because especially children really like Strax, and it was just a fun event to relaunch the comic Doctor Who Adventures, which is aimed at younger children, and I think quite a lot of them have written in that they would really like to meet Commander Strax. And they sort of, oh yes, we'll go on then. It's out of the Doctor Who experience, and it's all good fun. And I think they had a good idea about, based on sort of what the children have written, the kind of things that sort of like the kind of questions they were going to ask. So we were able to sort of like just anticipate slightly the sort of things that Strax might say, but then of course children are wonderfully unpredictable, and so they got these wonderful sort of questions like,
what do you have for your tea?
We sometimes do not eat. However, in Cardiff, I believe the locals drink brains. Yes. I will take this back to Sundown with me. And so like,
how do you go to toilet?
That was another question. And it's like, I will not dignify that as a response. Yeah.
That's a shame, because I was about to try and force a response.
Yes, I forced a response, yeah. I was like,
do you like Amy Pond?
That was another one. Yes. The orange human, yes. There was lots of thinking on your feet, but it was great fun.
You did come across as very knowledgeable about Sontar and biology and history, because I've watched the video of this, and it's really worth watching if you haven't watched it. And did you have to do much homework in advance for that?
I had prepared mentally for it, and again, as I said, we had sort of like thought about bits of script and that sort of thing, but it's kind of, you sort of plan in your head, and hopefully you can use it as well. It's a mixture of improvisation and homework.
Now, obviously, if there was anything in the works, you wouldn't be able to tell us, but if you were offered a spin-off of any kind with the Paternoster game, would you like to do that?
I think I'd give it serious consideration, certainly, yeah. I think, so like when we were doing sort of like one of our last recording dates, Neve and I would sort of like come back, Madagascar, and I would sort of like go back to the hotel after a good sort of like, 15 hours of prosthetics, and then sort of have a bit of a plot about sort of like, if we got our own program, be really violent. But I think the one thing they'd have to do, they'd have to give us industrial quantities of moisturiser if we were going to do it, because it takes it out of your skin. So yeah, sort of like in theory, possibly.
And well, that's an interesting point. The way you say it could be really violent. It's just occurred to me. I mean, do you think it would work either as an adult program or a kids program, or?
Yeah, it's difficult to say really, because I think especially it's like children really like Strax and sort of like, and it engages them a great deal. So I think it would be difficult to make it sort of quite like Torchwood or something. But I don't know. It would be interesting to see, from our point of view, what sort of a format they came up with. Really. So,
have you got any kind of wish list of things you'd like to see develop with the character of Strax?
If he could develop a perception filter so he looked like a human with a gap in his teeth for a couple of episodes, that would be quite nice. It's like less time in makeup. But no, I mean, there are so obvious like stories that, like if Strax actually met some unreconstructed Sontarans when he's going around with Vasper and Jenny, how would they treat him? Whether or not they like give him a dead leg and tell him it was rubbish. Yeah.
Oh, did you enjoy In the Name of the Doctor when Strax turned bad?
Yeah, no, I did enjoy that scene. I think there was a chance to. I got to be quite violent in that episode, which was quite fun. Just going through a window and hitting Whisper them with sticks and that sort of thing. That was great. But no, I did enjoy that bit where, so like, hopefully you can actually make him underline the point that although he's funny, he is also psychotic.
Who here would like to see a spin-off with the Paternoster Gang? I know I would. I've got if it ever happens though, I've got a request.
Okay.
I know, I'm sure you only have limited influence with the producers and stuff like that, but if you could just keep going around going, Jago and Lightfoot, Jago and Lightfoot.
Yeah.
That would be wonderful.
Yes.
Okay, I think we'll take some questions now from the audience. Anybody got a question? Come on. You, sir.
What do you think Strax was up to on Jenny and Vasta's hen night?
Did you all hear that? What do you think Strax was up to on Jenny and Vasta's hen night?
I think he was probably just polishing his grenades.
Is that the euphemism?
That's a big comment.
Another question over there.
You know, if you was in any other decade, which would you choose? The 1950s or the 1980s?
Well, both of them suggest wonderful possibilities. The 1950s. Yes, I suppose I could see some straps on the back of a motorcycle being the leader of the pack. That would be quite good. Yes.
That's why I fell for the leader of the...
Yeah. And the 1980s, yeah, shoulder pads. That would certainly work. Yes. I think the 1950s would be quite good. So there's something quite sort of like 50s or early 60s. That has possibilities as a kind of time period. Cold War Strax. Yeah.
These are very imaginative questions. I'm liking them. Anybody else? You at the front.
Do you have any input into Strax's really sort of violent and imaginative ideas for punishments that he comes up with?
I mean, the only bits which I've actually had, all the script is not written by me, that's all Stephen Moffat or Mark Gatiss. But I did a thing last Christmas called Songtaran Carols that was on YouTube, which was just me making up some, sort of Christmas carols in the Songtaran style on set, and then Matt overheard it and went, "Oh, that's really funny," and then got Saul, our director, to come over here, and then Saul recorded it. Much to the chagrin of the chap who was trying to keep us all on schedule. I don't have time for this! No, it'll be fine. But I made those up and they went online, and that's my contribution to it. But all the rest of it, I think it's written, now that I've been playing him for a little while, they've kind of got the rub of the character that he likes weapons, and more weapons, and increasingly elaborate ways of killing people. And my contribution is more sort of performative.
Do you ever get any lines that you feel like saying, "I don't think Strax would react like that"?
No. It's in the script.
Any other question?
Yes, he's a very deconstructed sometimes, isn't
Yeah.
he? How far, as an actor, would you like them to take him?
How far?
Yeah, I mean, he's so different to any other sometimes,
Yeah.
isn't he? So he's left 1,000
Yes.
years. Yeah. Where would you like, as an actor, where would you like him to go?
Well, I suppose I could see like a story arc where if he, Vasta and Jenny were working as more of a team, and then he met some, old school Sontarans who reminded him of what he was. It'd be interesting to see that sort of dichotomy in between, sort of the savage instincts he has, and sort of the, what he's actually become, whether he can live with himself, because there's this whole sort of grudging kind of, he's actually essentially well-meaning as well, most of the demons the Doctor has with him, albeit he's still a war-loving nutcase, so it comes out in a rather a strange way. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see which kind of
Could you see
direction to
him
go.
breaking down in tears, for example?
I'm not sure the Sontarans have tear ducts. I'm not sure they see the point of it. Biologically.
Deconstructed one.
Yeah, possibly. I don't think he's ever going to meet Quiche.
Okay.
Anybody else? We've got Sam.
Do you think Strax would like to meet any other famous Doctor Who monsters?
I'm sure he'd punch a Dalek if he met one. Yeah. Sure he'd, give a Chinese burn to a nice warrior. Or... Yes. I think most of them are pretty inferior compared to the Sontarans. So I think I'm sure he'd disabuse them of any notions of superiority they have. Yeah.
Well, that's just made me think of a question. Are there any other Doctor Who monsters or characters that you would really like to play?
It's funny, people asked me this before. I'd quite like to have my own TARDIS. That would be cool. So I suppose I could be like the meddling monk if they ever brought him back.
Oh, yeah.
That would be quite fun. But
I think a lot of people would like to see the Medellin one back, wouldn't they?
yeah. But yeah, having my own TARDIS would be cool. So slightly low rent master.
Any other questions? Yes, down at
Do
the
you
front.
think Strax will ever travel in the TARDIS?
Oh, maybe. I mean, he was in the Doctor's tomb at the end, which is sort of the TARDIS, but no, he's never actually sort of been on the TARDIS himself. Well, not that we've seen anyway, because presumably he got to Demon's Run somehow. But yeah, no, we'll be good. We'll have to see.
Is there a particular actor you'd like to see as a 12th Doctor?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, what I want is just to be surprised by a really good actor. I think I quite like the idea of someone who isn't particularly well known doing it as well, because I think also like the casting suggestions that come up via Ladbrokes or whatever, you always sort of say, oh yes, Eddie Izzard, well of course he's never going to do it, or whatever.
Eddie Izzard.
Yeah. But it's all those things. I think someone who comes without a huge amount of baggage, I think will be good, because quite a lot of the actors who've played it before haven't had. It's like so Matt wasn't particularly well known, so David Tennant was better known as a theatre actor, Casanova aside or whatever. So I think it's just someone who's up to the job really, and someone who's surprisingly exciting.
Yes.
You can't say him. What about a her?
Her, since Tom Baker first suggested it, it's like 30 odd years ago, then yeah, I suppose it's a possibility. I mean, yeah, maybe.
I'm possibly stepping on controversial ground here. I had real trouble with that idea until I read in Doctor Who magazine last month somebody saying maybe it could happen if something interfered with the regeneration process. And that's when I suddenly started going, okay then, maybe I can just about accept that as a concept. And there we are. Not that you wanted my opinion, but you've got it anyway. Who's next? Anyone? Any more questions? Yep.
Do you have a theory on what John Hurt's role will be as the Doctor?
Oh right, okay. I don't know really.
He has to say that.
Even if I could say, I can't congestion.
What would you like? What would you like him to do? What would your ideal thing for him to do?
Ideal? Oh gosh.
And we promise not to quote you as saying this is what he is.
Not definitely.
I think there's got to be some voyage of redemption type thing. If there's some reason he isn't like the Doctor proper, then he's got to like refine his doctorishness or something. I'm not entirely sure.
Okay, anybody else? Anybody who's not asked yet? Okay, we'll... Oh yes, over there.
Were you involved in the royal visit at all?
Yes, I was. Yes, Strax met Prince Charles, which was a very strange morning. Because we had a little bit of a briefing, and then had Nick Briggs sort of doing his Dalek voice behind a screen, and it's like, you'll wear blib as the Daleks, and I'm like, okay, that's fine, yeah. And it's like, yeah, and then it's like, okay, Dan, you've got to do it in character, really? Okay, I know I'm in costume, but it's like, I'm doing it in character, fully in character as Strax. Because his shtick is that he insults everyone. Surely you want me to do that to the heir to the throne? It's like, okay, you can insult him, but then tell him that you really respect him as well. Okay. So it was a strange morning, so I think I just about got away with it without being treasonous, so yes. But it was just a very, very strange, it was a nice morning, but it was just very strange. It's like a couple of minutes of just sort of like, yes, Your Royal Highness, it takes 3.5 hours. To get into it, yes. No, I find 5 fingers a bit more of a bourgeois frippery myself. Yeah.
So you've been doing at least several conventions I've seen you doing this year. How are you finding the convention circuit?
Oh, it's great. Well, no, I mean, I was in the States just last month, in Orlando and New York, which was great because I got a chance to start doing America and things. And again, the New York one was a gathering much like this. It was just like a nice little bar and then just having a chat with people, which is lovely. And then I've done this like the bigger scale ones, like I did Gallifrey in February in LA, which I think has ballooned just recently. I think it used to be about 800 people. But now, because Doctor Who's getting quite big in America, it was like 3,600 people, most of them in full fancy dress and cosplay and stuff. And it was just astonishing. You stand on stage and it's kind of this eruption. And then all of them's like really into Doctor Who. It was just amazing.
Have you met any Sontaran cosplayers?
I haven't yet actually, no. I think because there's a lot of work to put into the actual headpiece, which will be quite tricky to actually pull off. So I haven't seen any Sontaran cosplayers yet. I think one guy tweeted me with a sculpt that he had done of a Sontaran head for a cosplay thing, which was very impressive. But you know, you've got to put in a couple of months' worth of work on that sort of thing to actually to actually do it. But you know.
Any other questions? Yes.
If you'll be in any of the sci-fi franchise, what will you be in?
Oh gosh. Oh, that's an interesting idea. I would have loved to have been on Buffy. That would have been cool. So another sort of effete British character. with wonky teeth, wonky vampire teeth. That would have been cool. Anyone else? Other ones? Ooh. I don't know. I've done some. I recently did an audio, so like Blake 7 for Big Finish that was quite fun. But no, I think any of the big American ones that pay really well.
Yeah, any questions? Yeah.
It would be good to see Sontarans facing the Klingons, because they're actually quite similar in their outlook.
Yeah, the Sontarans are harder. Klingons have got hair. That's just rubbish. They also like sing opera. I mean, Sontarans don't do that, they just punch them. Or run through their legs and nut them.
Any other questions? Yes.
Can you rattle a few Doctor Who impressions off? Which one's your favourite and or your party piece, shall we say?
Oh gosh. Put me on the spot now. But the thing is, Tom Baker is a lot easier to slip into because you have these wonderful anecdotes that he starts saying. When I was walking down Wardour Street with Francis Bacon in 1974, and it starts going into these wonderful stories. I'd struggle. And Sylvester is a bit more. Right! And so you start rolling your R's and getting terribly tight. He's run! Yes, but I'll struggle with the rest of them.
Anybody else? Yes.
With all of what you've done in radio and also Big Finish, how much of your characters come out with finding the voice form rather than makeup?
Yeah, well, finding the voice is a part of it. Obviously on radio it's the whole thing, and there's lots of technical things which I look at in the scripts to go, oh, he's probably a bit like that. Or, so you work out, if the character's from... I mean, with Big Finish, it's quite interesting because, especially when you're working with all the past Doctors thing, like I did a Tom Baker one called Phone from the Future, that was an unmade Philip Hinchcliffe episode. And so everyone in the future, of course, speaks in received pronunciation like this, because it's 1970s BBC television. But I was playing about 3 or 4 different characters, so you've got to think they all sort of talk very properly, like 1970s BBC character actors would do. But within that, then you've got to find different variations. And so I started thinking in my head, okay, that one's, let's make that one be played by, I think I was watching, I had on the background on the television a repeat of Upstairs, Downstairs on ITV3. And I was just listening to some of the accents of that. So if I can't impersonate him, because he's a bit of an idiot, I can make him like that. And so it's all little qualities like that. And so even though you've got the same accent, which is a big, obviously a big sort of thing, I'll make one of these Daleks Scottish. You can just get away with a lot of things like that. But within those things, you look at the age of the character, you look at what background they're coming from. Like, I had enormous fun actually with another Tom Baker Big Finish playing the Kralls, who were definitely part of the second league of Doctor Who villains. We got an unsuccessful invasion of the Earth, but they were really entertaining to play because the original Kralls, they were played by Roy Skelton, who played Zippy in Rainbow. So, and it's like the Kralls, there's quite a sad story. They're on this awful radiation-filled planet. They've already tried to invade Earth once, it didn't work. That went really badly. They've did 1,000 years of radioactivity, they've all got a really bad headache, and no, Doctor. Well, one second we will try and destroy your fabled planet. Oh, really? Oh, you're going to figure us again. It was just great, this is really sort of like crumpled. You felt quite sorry for them. We're just rubbish.
Do I remember correctly, in the first Sontarans,
yes.
You had to play more than one Sontaran,
yes,
is that correct?
That happens quite regularly, yeah. I play a whole room of Sontarans on that.
Yeah.
And because the old series Sontarans, I based the voice on Lynx from the Time Warrior.
And the thing about Lynx is that he's got a voice which is down here, and he's a lot more proper, because actually Kevin Lindsay, the actor who played him, was actually Australian. So occasionally you can hear a little twang that comes out through like that, if you push it slightly farther. But his received pronunciation is really very proper, like a member of the royal family. And also because it's down here, it destroys your throat.
So if you've got like a whole room of these guys talking to each other, first of all you've got to think, how do I make them different? And so one of them will be down here a lot, and another one will be up here. And then so like one or two of them will probably have a moustache. Because some Sontarans do have facial hair.
So this one was a bit more moustache, you know. So it's a massive job Sontaran.
And then there's also a precedent that in the Invasion of Time, there's one Sontaran who is a cockney.
It was like, I will duff like something chronic, Target. You better walk up your shoulder. So I can get away with that as well, but they're all down here.
And so I actually took a bottle of Benylin to the studio with me one day after a whole thing of talking to myself for sort of half the afternoon, because it takes its toll.
Any other questions? Yeah?
Star Wars obviously is coming down to film in London.
Oh, yes.
Now they're big fans of people who used to wear prosthetics.
Ah.
So you'll be putting your hat in the ring.
Oh, well, maybe. I mean, I think it's one of the things like with Doctor Who, it's a relatively quick rehearsal show, quick sort of turnover. But I think with making a movie and it's like being in a prosthetics for like a couple of months, that will be another thing altogether. That will be yeah. I mean, I was hearing actually from someone about the dwarves on the Hobbit. And I think because they were in prosthetics for so long, you kind of forget who you are after a while. When you're sitting like this dwarf face in the mirror, it's like, who am I? I can't remember anymore. But yeah, I mean, certainly it's like being in Star Wars again. Would be another pretty iconic series to actually be a part of. But we'll see.
Oh, you're a Star Wars fan?
I mean, I watched it when I was a kid as well. I mean, I prefer the original three to the ones that came out 10 years ago. Which
Yeah.
shows my age.
Any other questions? Yes.
Is everyone a Doctor Who fan?
I mean, not everyone, but there's certainly a lot of people. I mean, it's the BBC's flagship programme now, so I think people, do find this is a good job to have, but they do tend to love it as well. And all the sort of writers now are people who grew up with it. I mean, I think one of the reasons it stopped in the 1980s is because, like, so many of the top brass of the BBC thought this isn't the sort of thing the BBC should be doing. But now you've got that sort of turnover generationally of people who'd grown up with it and seen what an institution it was. That you've got people who are enthusiastic of it at all levels of the organisation, not just the writers and the producers, but the executives as well who commission it. So it's great in that respect, and I think it's a tough show to work on because people push themselves really hard, and it's like making a new, it's like crazy movie every 4 weeks. Unlike other television programmes, like Casualty, they've got down the road, down the corridor. They've got all the standing sets that you recognise in every single episode. With Doctor Who, you've got the TARDIS control room, and that's it. Everything else has to be built new for each episode, which or shot on location, of course. But so like, if you imagine that as a logistical exercise, it's massive. But people do work very hard on it. But equally, it's because they love it so much and they want it to do well that it looks as good as it does.
Any other questions? Oh yes, yep.
That scene in The Name of the Doctor, did it take a long time to do? There were a lot of laughs when you were around the table.
Oh yes, the Chinese restaurant scene.
Did everybody hear that?
Yeah, there's the scene in the Name of the Doctor with a conference call as to how long that took. Yeah, that was a couple of afternoons filming, and that was kind of I felt very sick by the end of that because it was really interesting the way in which they'd chosen to do it, because we were actually on a proper revolve. It was like a revolving dais that the table was on, and then the cameras were around at different sort of positions. But as well, we kept on just rotating. That sort of thing. So you just try and focus on a bit on the wall, but I felt very, very pukey by the end of it, and I had to go out for a sort of like breath of fresh air. But sort of it was quite mental. And I think just we sort of like in between sort of takes, that sort of thing, where they sort of like because the air was full of haze and stage smoke as well. We ended up playing some nice word game, just trying to take our mind off things, just to sort of just keep concentrating on it. I think we were playing one of those games where you have to think of name an actor, and then the name of the next actor has got to be the last letter of the previous one. One of those word games, just to try and keep ourselves going. But, a little insight into the creative process there.
Have you had a favourite scene that you filmed, Doctor Who?
Oh, I've had so much fun stuff to do, it's tricky. I mean, I love doing some stunts all of a sudden in like, The Name of the Doctor, like going through a sugar glass window. It's fantastic. Because I could barely feel anything in the actual Sontaran suit, so it was great actually. Because I met the actor who was actually sort of playing the guy I was fighting with in the Glasgow pub, and he was enormous. And then I had this stunt double who was even bigger, with kind of like, you know, sort of muscles on his muscles. And it's like, okay. And then, you know, he burst through a window and it was great. I mean, things like the memory worm scene, that was enormous fun to do as well. That was just because we even at the read-through, we could barely look at each other because it was so silly and so fun to actually sort of do and sort of keep a straight face. But yeah, or there's the bit where I get to be scary again, with where I nearly killed Astra. That was good. And yeah, no, there's been loads of good stuff.
Any other questions? Yes.
Do you get a sense of different ways in which the two showrunners have used the Sontaran? So, you know, Russell sort of far more sort of straight take on, if you like, as just a warlike menace, and then Stephen Moffat sort of really exploring the comedy.
Yeah, well, I suppose functionally they play slightly different roles. We haven't had like a full-on Sontaran episode, like a Sontaran debate somewhere in Stephen's tenure, so it's much more Strax as a character who happens to be a Sontaran fulfilling a role in the episodes. But yeah, I mean, I suppose Russell had to bring them back in quite a straight way just to re-establish them as a monster straight off. But I suppose what Stephen's done is, I mean, it's always been there in the previous episodes that sort of you have the there's a couple of lines in the Time Warrior where sort of like where the third Doctor goes, he's like a little boy staring at the red ants and the black ants, and then Stephen's taken that concept and run with it in terms of Strax. You know, it makes a sort of sense that they sort of like you know, they don't live beyond about 10 years old because they expect to die in battle very, very quickly, and that's their entire tactic, is just, you know, sort of just all-out assault, you know, a short life and a glorious one. And then I suppose the humour of it, I think something quite fundamental to Doctor Who, as opposed to something like, you know, the Klingons in Star Trek. We respect the Klingons in Star Trek for being slight warriors, because, you know, we think that's what, whereas the you know, warmongers in Doctor Who, we don't think that's cool. You know, the Doctor will sort of tell them they're ridiculous. You know, at every sort of chance, he will subvert slightly the warmongers, because that's not who he is. And I think that's quite sort of and again, he's taken that concept and sort of there's humour to be mined in the fact that they take themselves incredibly seriously, much more so than anybody else does. But I mean, there's a line in I was rewatching The Two Doctors the other day because I was writing a little something for something else, which I should have mentioned probably. But there's a line in that where Steyer or Stike comes in and sort of room of people talking, and then goes, right, Eddies. It's like, we already were. And you know, it's always been part of it. It's like, you know, they adhere to this military discipline, but it's like nobody else really cares as much as they do. So it's just taking that concept and it's like perhaps taking it a little bit further, but it's always been there as part of the character. Oh, yeah.
What's your favourite phrase you get to say when you're playing Strax?
Or I could produce magnificent quantities of lactic fluid. that was the first one when I read it, and I thought, this is going to be quite good. People are going to remember that one. But I've had so many now, it's great. So like, I mean, I love to like, this planet is now property of the Sontaran Empire. Surrender your women and intellectuals. That's great.
Anybody else? Anybody else? Yes? Yeah.
I suppose that the one thing we haven't seen is the Rootons against the Sontarans.
Yeah, no, I'd love to see the Rootons, yeah. That would be good to have a good old smackdown with them. I think because they could do them really well now as well. Sort of like, I mean, they did the Rootons pretty well in sort of the 70s within the constraints of what they could do then, but I mean, actually in the computer game that you mentioned, the Gunpowder Plot, the design for them was really great. It was really quite Lovecraftian. It's kind of like floating, luminous amoeba, but I think they could do that really well now. It's like through a combination of, I don't know, really blobby prosthetics and CGI and stuff, and yeah, I think it would find its own time.
What was it like providing a voice for a computer game?
It's very strange because it's almost like doing a radio play, but then you list through different options, so it's kind of like, you know, I will destroy you! You've killed me! You know? What are you doing with that? No! Yeah, so I think I did lots of evil laughter. Excellent, my boy! A kind of heartiness. Yeah.
Question down there?
Yeah, I wondered if you've seen Shakedown, you know, the
the
spin-off that was done.
No, I've never seen it.
They redesigned the Sontarans.
Yeah.
Do you think that they should have stuck with that design if you ever get around to seeing it?
Right.
Or the ones that they came up with for the reincarnation?
Well, I've only seen pictures of them. They're a little bit more kind of, they've got sort of piercings.
Piercings, yeah.
Yeah. I can live without piercings, to be honest. But, no, possibly. I mean, it's always, you know, the Cybermen have been rebooted recently. I don't know if they'll reboot the Sontarans at some point, but sort of.
As somebody who is a Doctor Who fan and a fan of the classic series, when you were